Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here at 3Tier, here to give you my official review on the newest installment in the Fantastic Beasts lineup of Wizarding World films, simply titled Fantastic Beasts and the Crimes of Grindelwald. This movie was directed by David Yates, who's actually been directing the last number of these kind of like Wizarding World films, going back all the way to, I believe, Order of the Phoenix in the Harry Potter series. And in terms of the cast members, I think that a good number of the cast does come back, but a lot of new cast members do also appear in this film that kind of set things up as to these are the number of characters that we will be dealing with moving forward. Now, without going into too many spoilers, because I'm sure there's a number of other YouTubers that can do a much better job of explaining the spoilers than I can, the story pretty much takes place a few months after the events of the first Fantastic Beasts movie, in which Grindelwald was captured in that film. And at the very beginning of this film, he manages to escape, and he's going to start recruiting his followers because he has a plan in order to encourage the purebloods of the Wizarding World to take over the human world, because he had a prophecy of something happening. And it also involves him having to recruit Credence, who somehow survived the first film, and in order to stop Grindelwald's plan, Dumbledore then recruits Newt Scamander to have to go after him, because Dumbledore himself cannot actually go after him for very personal reasons. Now, I'm going to say this right now. This movie has been getting very, very mixed reviews. I have seen a number of reviews online of people that really enjoyed this film, and then a number of people that kind of didn't enjoy this film. And so, right from the get-go, I can already tell this is probably going to be the one Wizarding World film, I think, out of any of these films, even going back all the way to Harry Potter, that is going to be the most divisive. You're either going to really, really like this film, or you're just not going to be too for it. And unfortunately, I find myself... this is actually kind of symbolic, because there's a line in this film and in the trailer in which you're going to have to pick a side. And I think that very much applies to this movie too. You're going to have to pick a side as for whether you're for this film or you're against this film. And unfortunately, I find myself mostly on the against side. This is without question my least favorite or least enjoyed Wizarding World film to date. And that's very, very sad to say, because I've loved this series. I mean, I read all the books. I read all the books as a kid growing up. I saw all the films, really enjoyed them. And even after watching the first Fantastic Beasts movie, I could see that there was a lot of potential. The problem with this film, I think, is that there's too many elements that are introduced. We are not given enough time to explain everything, and because there's so many side plots and they're constantly juggling, you're having a hard time focusing on what the main goal is. I mean, the whole thing is supposed to deal with this sort of conflict between Dumbledore and Grindelwald, and yet the film spends so little time actually focusing on it, and it keeps jumping from plot point to plot point to plot point to plot point, and they don't even do a very good job at connecting. And so by the time you get to the end of the film, you just find yourself scratching your head as for what's going on. And I certainly was not the only one doing this in my theater, because as I was looking around, I could tell that I wasn't the only one who was confused with what was going on, because there's so much exposition. And it goes back to back. Then I'm like, when is something going to actually happen? Now, I'm going to get the good things that I thought was handled incredibly well in this film. Number one, I absolutely am continuously impressed with David Yates' direction. He has done a phenomenal job with this series, going all the way back almost 10 years, and that continues here. Whether or not he will continue moving forward, I don't know. But this guy really understands this world. He understands this mythology, he understands the source material he is dealing with, and he knows how to make it look absolutely beautiful. This is a beautiful film to look at. The CGI and all the visuals, I think, were absolutely fantastic. He knows how to direct these actors. And going into the actors, I think that for the most part, everyone did a good job with their performances. I think Eddie Redmayne did a much better job with his performance as Newt Scamander. As in the first film, I just felt he was a little bit off, but I think in this film, I think I kind of understood his character a little bit more. Without question, the standout performance came from Jude Law's Albus Dumbledore. He did a fantastic job with Dumbledore in this film. It just sucks that he literally has, without question, less than maybe 10 minutes of screen time. And it's clear that I think moving forward, I think he should be the focal point of this story, because just as the main protagonist for the Harry Potter films, it was going to be Harry going up against Voldemort. For this one, there's no question it's going to be Albus Dumbledore going up against Grindelwald. And I just didn't really like how little he's actually used. But I think that if we go into the third film, I think there should be some sort of transition from going from Newt being the main character to Dumbledore. I really hope that happens in the next film. Another thing I really also liked was the use of magic. There is a lot of use of magic and a lot of creative use of the magics itself that I haven't seen before. And so it does a fantastic job of actually expanding the world and seeing a different variety. I mean, we already saw what, the Wizarding World is in America, or, preferably in New York. And so it was nice seeing what it is in Paris. And I really hope that continues, and from what I know, that is going to continue, because we're going to go to a different location in the following up film. Another thing I also really liked were the Fantastic Beasts. Now, the interesting thing about the Fantastic Beasts is I kind of keep getting the feeling that they have such a small role. Like, are we going to continue to call these films Fantastic Beasts? Because they just seem to have this element of only showing up when it's convenient. Not because they're important to the story. It's like characters will find themselves in situations and it's just convenient that an animal or a creature will show up to help them out at this particular time. And if that keeps going, well, I think it wasn't so bad in this film. If they try to keep that going into the following up films, I think that is going to be annoying, because this was something that was happening in the first film. And I think the last thing that I really enjoyed, surprisingly, was Johnny Depp's performance as Grindelwald. This guy did not feel like he was phoning it in. I know that Johnny Depp has been kind of the focal point of some controversy in his personal life, and I would even say his last string of movies have been somewhat underwhelming. But I'm telling you, in this film, he is giving a legitimate performance. I'm not going to say he's quite on the same level as Ray Fiennes as Voldemort, but he is creative as a villain in his own unique way that makes him very much different from Voldemort, but in some elements similar, which is something I really hope that they expand upon in the next one, because this guy is incredibly charismatic and he's very manipulative. And there's even a speech at the end of the film that I thought was handled very well. I mean, I wasn't, drawn in by his speech, but I could certainly tell how a good number of wizards would be drawn into his cause. Now, going into the things I just didn't like. I just think it's the structure. Now, I understand that J.K. Rowling wrote the screenplay, but as much as we, as Potterheads, would like to praise her, and she's done a fantastic job, I just don't think that moving forward, she should be the one who is writing these screenplays. Her strengths are in writing books, and when you're writing books, it takes a completely different set of skills for when you're writing a screenplay for a movie, and I think that very much showed here, because the fact that these characters and these story arcs and these plot points and they're constantly juggling around and jumping from point to point to point, that's kind of what you would expect from a book. It takes a very different type of structure for a film, and this has always been an advantage that we had with the Harry Potter films, because all she had to do was write the book. Someone else then went into her work and said, okay, how do we break this book down and tell it in a way in which it fits a movie? And I just don't think that's her strength. So I really hope that moving forward, she can write a story and then have someone else who can specialize in breaking it down into a movie format do it in that sense. Another thing that I also didn't like was a couple of the revelations. Some of them just did not make any sense. And I understand that the movie kind of wants to make some things kind of obscure so that you're not really sure exactly what's going on, but sometimes I kind of want a direct answer. And another thing I also didn't like is how, with so many characters being introduced, some of these characters have absolutely no purpose of being here. You literally could take them out and nothing would change. And I was also very disappointed with the final supposed battle. I know that it's kind of typical for some of these movies to have like this big, massive CGI just splatterfest, but I'm gonna be honestly, I'm gonna be open. I was not a fan of how this movie ended, because it just felt like it was just thrown in there because you have to have some sort of big action scene. And out of any of the final action scene battles that supposedly have happened throughout these films, this was without question my least favorite. Yes, it's visually beautiful to look at, but it is ultimately pointless. So, as you can tell, I have been kind of on the fence about this film, but I do kind of find myself more on the negative side. But I don't think this is a bad film. But I will say this film has done an incredible job at least getting me more pumped up for the third film. I think that the things that they set up in this film at least give the next film a major boost. And if they can build off of that in the next film, then I certainly think that the next film could honestly be not just one of the best in these Fantastic Beasts movies, but it could actually end up being one of the best Wizarding World films we've ever had. So if I had to give Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald a rating, I'm going to keep it kind of in the middle of the road, but since it's more on the negative side, I'm going to have to give it a C-. Now again, do not let my thoughts and my personal ratings give you any sort of vibes as for whether you should see this or not. This is going to be a movie that is going to be different depending on who you are. So absolutely see the movie for yourself and come up with your own conclusion, because again, I think that it's going to come down to maybe 50-50 as for who likes this film and who doesn't really like this film as much. And I just find myself on one particular side. So those are my thoughts on the film. If you have seen this film, share your thoughts with me and everyone else in the comments down below. And if you like this video, feel free to like and also press one of the links in the description down below to follow me on Twitter and friend me on Facebook to keep track of me and my future videos. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you next time.